What's up, y'all? BK back here with another paddle review, and in this one we're going to be reviewing a brand new paddle from one of the top pickleball paddle manufacturers in the world. Selkirk has now come out with their brand new power paddle geared towards top tier premium performance. So in this video we're going to talk about exactly what this paddle does well, what it doesn't, who it would suit, and why you should try and get your hands on the new Selkirk Labs Project Boomstik. Let's do it. Now, for anybody that's been following my content for a while, you know I've been a big time critic of Selkirk for a long time. I've always felt that they've been behind the game in terms of the new technology and anything else that's come out in the pickleball world, and it always felt like they were a step behind any latest innovation. Well, with this paddle, not anymore. With Selkirk's latest ventures in the paddle market, the Era Power and the Project Boomstik, Selkirk has now finally made a big time stamp in the power paddle game and has entered 2025 with a bang. The Project Boomstik is one of the best paddles I've tested till date in terms of power paddles in 2025, and I'm super excited to be doing this review because I believe this is a paddle that a lot of players are going to gravitate towards, especially those at that higher advanced levels and pro players. So Selkirk finally has a paddle that a lot of pro players are going to enjoy. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Now, before we dive into the paddle itself, here's a quick breakdown of Selkirk and their business model in terms of the different tiers of paddles that they offer. Selkirk has their regular Selkirk Sport line of paddles, but they also have the SLK line and the Selkirk Labs line. The SLK is their budget-friendly, lower-tier paddles, are more designed to bring you top-quality paddles, but under a budget. Their regular Selkirk line is their mid-tier paddles that often price between $200 and $250, whereas the Selkirk Labs are their top-quality premium paddles, usually featuring some sort of innovation that we haven't seen before that's been heavily tested by their R&D team. Now, the Project Boomstik is a paddle by Selkirk Labs. So that means this paddle has undergone heavy testing, heavy R&D, and is geared for a premium performance style of game and is going to be priced to match. So this paddle comes in at $333, which makes it one of, if not the most expensive paddle on the market. But you can use the code INF-BKPB to get yourself a gift card from Selkirk for any other purchase in the future. So if you do want to get this paddle, but you're trying to make it a good bang for your buck, make sure to use the code INF-BKPB on the Selkirk Labs website, and you can get yourself a valuable gift card. Now, as I mentioned, this is a Selkirk Labs paddle, so there is a lot of innovation and technology that goes into these paddles. So let's dive into what makes this paddle stand out in terms of their new innovation and technology. Now, the Project Boomstik has what Selkirk is calling the Boom Core. This is their pure foam core from their Project 008 series, which is a fully foam core surrounded by an EVA foam power ring. The additional EVA power ring is what makes this paddle stand out from the Project 008 in terms of its power and the sweet spot, two things that I had a big issue with on the Project 008. So their new EVA power ring with the pure foam technology, which now they're calling the Boom Core, is a much better core in my opinion and has fixed a lot of the issues that we've seen with the Project 008. Now, because this is a fully foam core, there is also no break-in period with this paddle. So if you're used to a Gen 3 or Gen 3.5 style of paddle where you have that polypropylene honeycomb and the foam inserts, those paddles usually have a really long break-in period where you have to use the paddle for a few weeks before the paddle plays like it's supposed to. So over the lifetime of those paddles, the playability changes drastically. However, with the new foam core, there is no break-in period, which means this paddle will play the exact same for a very long time since the day you open the box. So that is something that I believe is a feature that's going to benefit the users of the new Selkirk Project Boomstik, or any other foam core paddle for that matter. So if you are worried about the switch from the polypropylene honeycomb to the new foam cores, I think the Project Boomstik is a great way to get yourself into the game with the new foam core technologies. Now, the other issue I had with the Project 008 was that the sweet spot felt really small on that paddle, and the weight balance was very uneven because that foam core is very dense. Now, what's happened with the Project Boomstik is the weight of the paddle itself has become a lot lighter because of that bigger EVA foam on the outside of the core itself. So what Selkirk have done to maximize the sweet spot and really allow you more forgiveness is they have what's called the MOI Tuning System. So this is where they've added these weight clamps to the sides of the paddle that come fixed onto the paddle itself when you open the box, and these weight clamps have really helped distribute the sweet spot and make it a lot bigger, while also giving you more swingability and power on your shots as the weights are placed near the center of the face. Now, a question that I got a lot was, are these weights movable? And Selkirk has said that these weights are designed to stay at the spot that they come in out of the box, and do not recommend removing those weights and trying to move them elsewhere. But for now, because I like a more headlight paddle, what I've done and what I recommend y'all to do as well is I've added a ton of weight underneath the butt cap and at the bottom of the face, where I've really brought the weight of the paddle down, because I personally prefer a more headlight style of balance on my paddle. So that is something that I've done, and I recommend that you do as well if you are someone that likes a more balanced or headlight paddle. Now, the other new technology that Selkirk have put into this paddle is the Infinigrit. The Infinigrit is a new grit on the face of the paddle that they've started using in their Lux line of paddles that they've also now used in the Project Boomstik. This is supposed to be a much more long-lasting grit that stays on the face of the paddle for exponentially longer than their previous models like the Power Air and the original Lux series, where the grit wore off very quickly. So this paddle does promise that the grit will stay on for a lot longer on the paddle face, so time will tell if that is truly the case. So I'll keep you posted if I see any changes in the grit of the paddle. Now, this paddle does come in two different shapes, the Widebody and the Elongated. These seem to be the shapes that Selkirk is moving forward with on all their premium paddles, and it started with the Era Power line of paddles that they had just come out with in the SLK line, and they are sticking to those two shapes for the Project Boomstik and any other paddle in the near future that they've designed for that premium range of paddles. So these are the two shapes that you're going to see, and I'll leave the specs of both paddles up on the screen for you to check out. But in terms of what they offer, both paddles have a similar handle length, and the biggest difference that you're going to see is the reach with the elongated paddle and the surface area on the Widebody. So based on your game style, we'll discuss which paddle is better for you and which one you might want to pick up for yourself. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room. Is the name Project Boomstik justified? And in my short term playing with this paddle, absolutely. This paddle has exceptional power and pop, and honestly tested higher than the Yolas in terms of power and pop, something that I was very surprised by, because Selkirk has been against the power style of game for a long time now, but to see them finally come out with a paddle that meets the regulations, is fully certified and approved, and still keeps that upper echelon of power, I think Selkirk has finally figured out what they need to do to attract more pros and make sure that the paddles that they're providing are being used at the highest level of the game. And to me, the Project Boomstik does exactly that. This paddle is really designed for Selkirk to compete against the likes of the Yolas and the Paddle Techs out there that have been dominating the pro scene for a very long time, because they've really embraced the power style of game that we're seeing in 2025. So with the Project Boomstik, you really do get that huge power and pop that you do expect from a paddle aptly named the Boomstik. Now, what I really liked about this paddle is I was expecting the power and the pop from the paddle, but where it stood out to me in terms of its comparison to the Yolas and the Paddle Techs is that it didn't sacrifice power, where balls are coming at you hard. What I mean by that is when I use the Yolas and the paddle techs, if somebody drives the ball, if I hit a counter, I've always felt that the ball almost dies a little bit on the paddle while you're hitting those swing volleys. So the ball comes off a lot slower when you swing through on a shot where somebody hits it with a lot of pace. It's almost as if the ball compresses on the paddle face and then comes out a lot slower than you expect it to. So I don't get that quick ricochet counter off of those drives when somebody speeds the ball up at me. What the Selkirk Boomstik does really well is the rebound off the paddle when somebody hits the ball with power is lightning quick. The ball comes out super quick off of power shots, and swing volleys feel unbelievable with this paddle. This is where I really enjoyed playing with this paddle over the Yolas and the paddle techs, because I'm someone that really likes to swing through volleys when I'm being pressured. When I play against a very banger style of pickleball, I love swing volleying against big drives, and I've always felt like the Yola really sacrificed a lot of power when it came to that style of game. Now granted, when I was initiating the offense or I had putaways, the Yola and the paddle tech still have top tier power, but I just didn't feel that power when it came to countering the ball off of big drives. The Boomstik really does that exceptionally well, and I think that's one of the primary reasons I feel this new technology is going to be the standard for power paddles moving forward. Now, what I will say about the power and the pop is that the paddle does come in very head heavy, so that power and pop is very accentuated when you first pick up the paddle. This paddle is very hard to control if you don't have soft hands and haven't mastered the technique on drops and resets. That is something that did take me a while to get down, because I'm used to playing a lot of the soft game where I like to drop, reset, and dink my way into a point before I start initiating any offense. And this paddle did take a while for me to really soften out and calm down, because if you swing through your shot any amount, this paddle is going to pop the ball off like crazy. If you are a player that's 4-5 and under and haven't mastered the drop, reset, and dink technique, I would recommend checking out the Era Power first. That paddle really has a lot more playability and a lot more control for those lower level players. But once you do get up to that 4-5, 5-0 and above, this paddle is outstanding once you get the feel for it. I would, as I said, really recommend bringing the balance of the paddle down so that it enhances the control of the paddle without sacrificing a lot of the power. The paddle is plenty powerful, so you don't need any extra power with the weight setup. So use your weight setup to bring the balance of the paddle down to increase the control on the paddle. You can play both a soft style of game while still keeping the power of the paddle at that elite top-notch level that is designed to be at. Now, talking about the control on this paddle, as I mentioned, this paddle is not the most control-friendly paddle. The reason I really enjoy playing with the Gen 3 polypropylene core is that on soft shots, that paddle still has the stiffness to really feel the ball coming off the paddle, and it allows you to play your drops, resets, and dinks a lot easier and a lot more consistent because of that paddle feel. Now, with the foam cores, the dwell time on the ball is a lot higher, but what I've also found with these foam cores is the feeling of the ball coming off the paddle has a little bit more of that plush feeling where you can almost feel the ball hit the paddle, sit on it for a while, and then come out. So it's almost got that little bit of springiness to it, which makes it a little more unpredictable in terms of being able to control the ball. The stiffness of a paddle really helps me control the ball and feel the ball coming off the paddle face a lot more, whereas these high dwell time paddles sometimes take away from that. As I mentioned, you do have to be a very nuanced player and a higher level player to really have the soft hands and the touch to control this paddle. So if you are somebody that's just picking up the game and is starting to get into the game of pickleball, definitely stay away from the Project Boomstik. Go try out the SLK Era Power line of paddles. It's going to give you a lot more control and a lot more playability. And once you get to that 4-5 advanced style of game, then you can pick up the Project Boomstik, and it's going to be a lot easier for you to control the ball. Now, talking about the spin of the paddle, the spin of this paddle comes from two sources. One is that foam core, which increases the dwell time of the paddle, allowing the ball to sit on the paddle face for a lot longer. And two is the new Infinigrit that they've added on the face of the paddle that gives it that extra grit and extra grip on the ball that allows you to spin the ball a lot more. Now, when it comes to the spin of this paddle, it is top tier. For a high performance paddle, this is the kind of spin that you expect to see. All of my slices and my topspin shots felt insanely good on this paddle, and that's because I could really feel the ball sit on the paddle face for a long time, enhancing that spin rate that comes off the paddle face. Now, the spin is really what helps me control the ball on this paddle, because just the touch of the paddle is not great. The touch of the paddle is very unforgiving when it comes to hard hands, and if you have any sort of grip where you tighten the grip on the paddle, it's gonna pop off the paddle face. Now, what you can do to counter the pop on this paddle to control the ball on your drops and your dinks is add that extra bit of spin. When I was dropping with this paddle, my normal drop technique of hitting the ball either flat or with some backspin made that ball float a lot more and gave my opponents a lot of pop-ups. But what I noticed with this paddle is the spin rate is so good, I was able to start top spinning drops, allowing myself to hit the ball normally, but get that ball to dip down over the net a lot quicker because of the enhanced spin on this paddle. So if you are somebody that has a very top spin drop technique, you're really gonna enjoy playing with this paddle, because that's really what it's designed for. It's almost designed for that tennis style of game. If you have big drives and have very topspin heavy drops and topspin heavy dinks, two-handers and whatnot, that tennis style of game is something that this paddle is going to really enhance, and that's really who this paddle is designed for. Now, talking about the value for money on this paddle does cost $333, which is one of, if not the most expensive paddle on the market right now. So given the price tag, this paddle is pretty expensive. This paddle is over $50 more expensive than the Yola Pro 4 series and the Carbon True Foam series, two top tier premium paddles that we've seen in the market that have really stood out in 2025, and this paddle is over $50 more expensive than those models. So in terms of value for money, it's really hard to justify the price tag. However, Selkirk Labs does give you a lot of perks, and that is one of the reasons that Selkirk has priced this paddle at that price point. Is one, this paddle is made in the USA, so all their production costs are a lot higher than a lot of these other companies that do a lot of their work in China and other places. But also, Selkirk really prioritizes customer service. So the packaging that this paddle comes in with, that briefcase and everything else that goes along with being a Selkirk Labs member when you do make a purchase at Selkirk Labs, is something that Selkirk sees a lot of value in. So when you take it all in a big sweet package, the $333 price tag is designed towards that premium customer that's looking for top tier product and also top tier customer service. So that is what you're getting with this paddle. You can use the code INF-BKPB on the Selkirk Labs website to get yourself a sweet little gift card that's going to allow you to purchase any apparel or gear that you want from Selkirk. So if you do want to buy this paddle, make sure to use the code INF-BKPB at the Selkirk Labs website. Now, comparing this paddle to the SLK Era, the biggest difference that you see is the power itself. The SLK is a Gen 3 style of paddle with a polypropylene honeycomb and an outer foam wall, versus this one is that full foam core with that EVA power ring, and this paddle does have almost 15% more power and pop than the SLK Era. So the SLK paddle is a lot more controllable and also allows for a much stiffer feel on the paddle face because of that polypropylene honeycomb. So if you are looking for a paddle with more control and a little bit of that stiffer paddle feel that's going to help you control the ball and feel the ball a lot better coming off the paddle face, I would definitely recommend you go with the SLK Era, especially if you're a lower level player that needs that extra bit of control to really feel the ball coming off the paddle face. Now, if you are an advanced player and just want that extra power and pop while having that higher dwell time allowing you to spin the ball a lot more, then definitely go get the Project Boomstik. You will not be disappointed. It is a fantastic power paddle. Now the last thing we're going to touch on is the elongated versus the wide body paddle. In the SLK Era line of paddles, I did find that the wide body played a lot better than the elongated version because it gave you that enhanced spin from the extra surface area, and it also had a little bit more pop on those counters because you really get that propulsion from the Gen 3 style of core. However, in the Project Boomstik, I really did not like playing with the wide body shape because it really takes away from what this paddle is truly designed to do. This paddle is designed for that more tennis style of game, so the wide body, which offers a lot more control and a bigger sweet spot, is something that the Project Boomstik really doesn't need, and the Project Boomstik is really designed for you to swing big, hit a lot of power shots, hit a lot of flicks, hit big counters and swing volleys at the net. So the elongated version of this paddle did play a lot better in my opinion than the wide body version. So if you do want a wide body paddle, I honestly think the SLK Era plays a lot better than the Project Boomstik wide body. So the wide body on the Era to me is a better paddle than the wide body on the Project Boomstik. If you are going to get the Project Boomstik, I would definitely recommend getting the elongated over the wide body because it does make a pretty big difference in terms of playability. Hope you enjoyed that review. Comment below what other reviews you'd like to see me do. If there are any paddles that you want to see me review, make sure you comment those below. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel so we can continue putting out more great content for you. You can subscribe right down here to BK Pickleball. Also follow me at BK_Pickleball on Instagram. I put out a lot of great short form content on there, including instructionals and paddle reviews. Like this video, share the video, do all the fun things, and until next time, I'll see you later.